thanks for coming. We're excited to have you guys, and hope you'll come see the show. Thanks to Margaret and the rest of the staff at the museum. They've been great, and the show does look really great. I'm really bad with PowerPoint. I've only used it once or twice, so if I screw up, I apologize. So I'm just going to start by cruising through the show, showing you guys images of both work in the show and work by the artist that isn't necessarily in the show. And hopefully we can keep it moving quickly here. This first shot is a, well, let me back up and say, I'm going to just assume that some people in the room aren't necessarily familiar with the show. And this Beautiful Losers is a survey of art and artists who come from about 30 years of street culture. The cultural aspects explored in the show are mainly derived from skateboarding, graffiti, and independent music, mostly punk and hip-hop. The show is set up in 4 or 5 main sections that kind of operate in a chronological pattern. The first section is called Roots and Influences. And the Roots and Influences section is a survey of artists that mainly worked in the 70s and 80s that have had a direct influence on my contemporaries, the contemporary group we call it. And this installation view is of, it's taken in Cincinnati, which is the Contemporary Art Center where the first show occurred. And this is one of the installation views of the Roots Room. On the left, you can barely see it, are 2 works by Larry Clark, the well-known photographer. The large piece, vertically oriented piece, is a chalk drawing from the subways by Keith Haring. There's a small drawing by Pusshead, and there's some Mark Crum drawings to the right, and then Raymond Pettibone's above the vitrine. This next shot is the other view of the Roots Room. You've got the Pettibone drawings. Jean-Michel Basquiat is the large painting in the background to the left. And then the collage of images, the black and white images to the right, middle right, is by Ari Markopoulos. And then finally, to the far right, you'll see the hand-drawn, hand-marked skateboards by Wes Humston, who was the primary graphic artist for the Dogtown skateboard movement in the late 70s in the Santa Monica area. This piece is also part of the Roots and Influences section of the show. It's by Craig R. Stezik III. Craig is perhaps the most important influence on the contemporary group of anyone else. He could arguably just be responsible for the current sort of concept of the rebellious skateboarder, the image of the rebellious skateboarder. That is a sort of a stereotype that was created in large part by the writings of Craig R. Stezik III during the 70s in Skateboarder magazine. He documented California culture for the last 30 years, mainly surf culture, skate culture, lowrider culture, hot rod culture. And that piece is really amazing. It's really obviously a collage of images that sort of represent his body of work, along with some hand-painted sort of graffiti elements that mimic sort of the Latino gang signs from Los Angeles that were appropriated by the Dogtown crew in the 1970s. That's just a detailed view of Craig's installation. This is also a part of the Roots and Influences section. This is a large painting by Raymond Pettibone. Raymond initially gained acclaim by designing record covers for his brother's hardcore band Black Flag in the 1980s, late 70s, early 80s. This piece was done specifically for the show, and surfing is one of Raymond's sort of consistent themes you'll see in his drawings and paintings. This is a photo of the band Minor Threat taken in, I believe, 1981 by Glenn E. Friedman. Glenn is also a part of the Roots and Influences section of the show, and is mostly known for documenting the Dogtown culture of Southern California in the late 1970s, early 80s, as well as the independent music scenes, both hardcore punk rock as well as hip-hop. Glenn, he had a father that lived in New York, and his mom lived in Los Angeles, so Glenn had the benefit of being able to be involved in scenes on both sides of the country. And the Minor Threat is a band from Washington, D.C., so This is taken in front of the house that they lived in and operated Discord Records out of, which was their own record label. This is an image by Larry Clark from the Tulsa portfolio. You'll see this in the show. Larry's was first gained acclaim by shooting, documented his own friends growing up in Tulsa in the late 50s. And it's a pretty incredible image of these what appear to be relatively clean-cut gentlemen injecting themselves with various drugs with Jesus in the background. So, one of my favorite images. This is another image from Tulsa that's also included in the show. Larry's influence on many of the photographers included in Beautiful Losers will be readily apparent when you come to the show. He's a pretty important photographer. This is a still from Larry Clark's 1995 film, Kids. I don't know how many of you have seen that film, but it was written by Harmony Korine, who at the time he wrote it when he was 17, and Larry directed it. So that's Chloe spinning, really drugged out in an elevator. This is an installation view from San Francisco of the main section of Beautiful Losers. On the left is a mural by Clare Rojas. That piece is here. The grid of images with the clouds on the brown wall. That's a piece by Ed Templeton, a well-known professional skateboarder and artist. It's called Teenage Smokers. For about from the mid-90s or early 90s to 2002, 2003. Ed documented teenage smokers. He travels the world for professional skateboarding, doing tours and demonstrations and contests, and was fascinated by the phenomenon of teenage smokers. So he documented that over the course of about a decade. The sculpture in the foreground is by Mark Gonzalez, again a professional skateboarder, as well as an artist and poet and writer. That piece is the Schminks. It's not that you'll see that here too, and I think we've got a better shot of that a little bit later in the slideshow. The photos in the background are by Ryan McGinley, and the piece on the far right in the background is by graphic artist Geoff Mcfetridge. This is an image, a detailed shot of one of Clare Rojas' pieces. Claire is a San Francisco-based painter and musician, and you can see the folk art influences. A lot of people have described her work as a combination of surrealism and high school notebook art. This is an installation view of Ed Templeton's piece. Again, there's teenage smokers on the left, and you can see the combination of his paintings and the photos to the right there. It's another shot of Ed's installation. Gives you kind of a better view of the collage, clustered works. And this is the piece that's traveling. You'll see this in the show. This is an image by Tobin Yelland, a photographer, a New York-based photographer included in the show, the Contemporary Group. I think you can see the influences that Larry Clark has had initially here. This is a photo of former professional skateboarder Andy Roy. Why he has Martinez tattooed on his torso, I really don't know. But it's a great photo. This is an image called Tim Falling by Ryan McGinley. Ryan is a New York-based photographer who first became known for documenting his friends' sort of Lower East Side youth culture in New York City. And this image is by Cynthia Connelly. Cynthia is a Washington, D.C. based photographer who was very steeped in the punk rock scene in Washington. And this is a shot of, I think this is Sarah from the band Unwound, a Washington based band. And she did a series of images called Punks in Their Cars, and that's what Cynthia initially became known for. Cynthia then started, during her travels, doing tours, punk rock tours and whatnot. Cynthia became fascinated with a dying breed of the Americana landscape, which is ice machines. So she began shooting images of photos of ice machines that she came across. She was fascinated with the fact that they were a dying breed, and a lot of times the adorn the sides of them. And then this piece is her inclusion in the show. You can see it's the Ice Machines portfolio, taken over a period of perhaps around 10 years. This is an installation view shot in Cincinnati, Ohio. The foreground there's Mark Gonzalez's Schmink's sculpture. It's sort of one of Mark's well-known characters is like a blob-type character called the Shmoo, and so it's the Shmoo in the sort of position of the Sphinx, given the peace sign. And in the background is Ryan's work. I'm not going to even begin to talk. Ryan's going to talk about his work in a little bit, but it's a great piece, and that's also the piece you'll see in the show. There's another view of Ryan's work that was taken in Orange County. To the left is a sculpture by Cause. That's awesome. That's also in the show. You'll see that as well. It's about 6-7 feet tall. This is a painting cluster by filmmaker and artist and photographer Thomas Campbell. Thomas is a Santa Cruz, California-based photographer, painter, and filmmaker. Heavily influenced by surf cultures, Thomas makes surf films, travels around the world, shoots photos, and paints when he can. This piece is in the show, however, we were not able to include it due to space. This is also an image of Thomas's travels. This was taken in, I think it was the Hong Kong airport. Thomas's black and white photography has a more documentary type feel to it, whereas his color photography, as you'll see here, is more abstract and self-consciously artistic. That's an installation view of Thomas's work taken in Cincinnati as well, where the first show occurred. On the left is a cluster of his photos. In the middle is a film that was looping, and then Welcome to Attaché, the pop-up piece he calls it. You'll see that here, which is wood cutouts, painted wood cutouts. This is a painting by Chris Johansson, San Francisco-based painter. Chris's work is heavily influenced by sort of new age consumerism, and his work often makes statements on sort of the state of our culture today. Very humorous. It's another painting by Chris Johansson. And this was Chris's first piece in the show. It's about a 20-foot tall mountain, geodesic mountain. You walk inside and there's a circle of monitors of naked or semi-naked people playing drums. So, sort of a virtual drum circle. It's pretty fun. This is a piece by Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson is also a San Francisco-based painter. She uses recurring images of birds and skulls, wolves, maps of the U.S., etc., and she often paints them in very nice, pretty, pastel-y colors, but the imagery itself is often very dark, as you can obviously see here. This is an installation view in Orange County. The piece in the middle is by New York-based painter Phillip Frost. Phil got his start working on the street and was sort of considered a graffiti artist, although I wouldn't call him a graffiti artist in the traditional sense, at least. What Phil would do, he would scout out locations he liked, alcoves, light boxes, telephone booths, whatever, and he'd measure them, go back to the studio, create site-specific works specifically for where he wanted to put them, and then would go back and attach them to the site. Phil's work evolved into more traditional painterly sort of gallery-type work, and this is a very large piece that is made up of 20 different panels, and of course some of them relief off the wall. It's about 10, 12 feet high by 20 feet wide, and it uses materials ranging from leaves and shards of glass and mirrors to sand and dirt, and the white you'll see is heavily, intricately executed. It's whiteout. He takes really the super fine Pentel whiteout pens and just obsessively paints layers and layers and layers of hearts and other designs all over his paintings. There's another view of Phil's piece on the right. You can kind of get a better idea of what I'm talking about. And then And you'll see Cause's installation on the left there. His Chum, that large pink sculpture, that character is called Chum. And to the far left on the plywood wall are 6 Kimpson's paintings. He actually borrowed a page from Duchamp and Warhol there and took his paintings, which are sort of abstracted images of Simpson's characters with his trademark skull and crossbones character as their faces, and put them in. He fabricated plastic blister packages, toy packages, and had the backing cards printed, and actually put his paintings in the toy package. Cause first gained acclaim by, he somehow obtained a skeleton key for the New York City bus stop advertising boxes or whatever. And so he would go and he'd steal them, go take them back to his studio, and his training had been in animation art. He would use animation paint, cell paint, to paint his characters on top of the poster, take them back to the booth and reinsert them in the original space. This is a shot. This is in London, obviously. There's a better image of Cause's installation with the Chum sculpture on the right, the Kimpson's package paintings in the middle, and on the left are photo documentation of his original street works, similar to the image I just showed you. This is an image, this is work by Shepard Fairey, who's been mentioned earlier by Margaret. Shepard began using the image of Andre the Giant, and it began as a college project and almost as a half joke. But he took Andre the Giant, a former professional wrestler's image, and just started making stickers and posters and putting them everywhere he could, and it's turned into a global phenomenon. And I think this is Tokyo. Shepard, this is part of Shepard's installation. It's photo documentation of street installations, as well as his manifesto. He wrote a manifesto to describe sort of what this project began as, and put it on the wall for everyone to read. And this is an image of one of Shepard's works in San Francisco. It was just, we pasted posters layered on top of each other to mimic what his installations look like on the streets, onto plywood panels. This is a shot of a New York City delivery truck painted on by Espo, known as Steve Powers, and KR. This is a piece by Barry McGee, also an artist who initially gained acclaim as a graffiti writer. Barry's a San Francisco-based artist. And this was a collaborative piece he did in Cincinnati. Kind of a good story. You can see his sad sack head face character up on the top left there. The naked reclining man is actually by Clare Rojas, and the Amaze throw up is her piece there is by Amaze, Josh Lozcano, who is a frequent collaborator with Barry. That is on the wall, the side of the building of the longest-running 5-star restaurant in the country. The owner of the building, the restaurant, was a big art supporter and allowed the CAC, or allowed us, the artists, or whomever, to paint the side of the building. So, and Barry's face is still there. They freaked out about the naked guy and made Claire paint a thong over his genitalia. We learned that boobs are okay, penises are not. So. Okay. That's Barry's piece in the courtyard opposite the Contemporary Art Center in Cincinnati. It's just an overturned smoking truck. And what's inside the truck, you'll see. I don't think I have an image of it, but you'll see at the show today here. Oh, there it is. Okay. So that's a series of geodesic panels by Barry McGee with his animatronic mannequin, which is, it's actually an exact rendition of his collaborator Amaze painting on the wall, his Amaze tag on the wall. This is a This is Margaret Kilgallen painting a mural in San Francisco. Margaret's piece, let's see, that's an installation at the Drawing Center in New York. And this is Margaret's piece in Beautiful Losers. Her work is heavily influenced by sort of Latino culture, surf culture, the Mission District in San Francisco. This is a poster designed by graphic artist and filmmaker Mike Mills. Mike first gained acclaim by designing record covers for the Beastie Boys' Sonic Youth, dozens of bands during the 90s. And this is him painting this series of spray painting photos that he did with a photographer named Todd Cole. Mike likes to kind of push your emotional buttons and get right to it. And I just feel that's a pretty interesting message that we could all remember probably more often than not. This is Mike's installation of the show. It's a sort of, you'll see some of the spray painting images as well as his graphic images, sort of an assemblage of his body of work. And then the monitors in front of the benches there are just a selection of his film works. This is a piece by Geoff Mcfetridge, also a Los Angeles-based graphic artist, included in the show. And this is Jeff's first installation in Cincinnati. We're showing a different piece now, but it's an entire functional living room, couches, lamps, etc., everything designed by Jeff. This is the ephemera section of the show. One of the main sections of the show is called Ephemera and Limited Editions. One of my goals was to, like I said, Mike Mills has designed a lot of album covers. He's a good example. I think a lot of people out there in the general public are familiar with the work of Mike, that he did album covers for the Beastie Boys, Sonic Youth. They might have those records, but they didn't necessarily know that this group of artists designed these products. And I wanted to, with this section of the show, I wanted to illustrate the profound effect these artists have had on American culture, which I don't think they've been recognized to date, to the extent they should at least. That's another shot of the ephemera. You see the album covers on the right, the skateboards in the back, and the toys and the bookcase on the right. That's an album cover by Jean-Michel Basquiat, a toy by Cause, album cover by Thomas Campbell, and an album cover by Barry McGee.